My name's Dave Metz. I want to tell you about my 7-month trek across Alaska with my 2 dogs, Jimmy and Will. It was an adventure that I had been thinking about over the years. I've been inspired by people, just ordinary people that take on these amazing challenges, everyday people. And I always wanted to live up to these things that I read and undertake my own adventure. So a few years ago, I set out with Jimmy and Will to begin my trek. I did it over 3 different summers, and when I was 48, just last summer, I finished my adventure. Why did I go? That's a good question, but I think it all boils down to the endless horizons, the endless wild horizons in Alaska that just take your breath away. I wanted to be able to walk from one end of the horizon to the next. It just drew me there. But and people ask me this question, I don't think it's something that was out of my capability, but at times it sure seemed that way. So this is my adventure, and I hope you like it. In the river. My maps, I didn't even have maps of this region. I actually called my girlfriend on my satellite phone asking to see if this route was even feasible. She told me to turn back, but I didn't turn back. So I get in there after 3 days of hiking and realize the cliffs are just too steep, and I realize that if I keep going I'll probably fall to my death. So I turn around, I go back out Gold Pass, and then I go down the Noatak River another day, and then I go up and over Portage Creek, and eventually I make it to the Alatna River. And I used up about 4 or 5 extra days of food, which was going to put me in trouble So from the village of Ambler to the village of Anactuvic Pass, that was by far the longest stretch where I didn't have a place to get food. I ended up calling home on my satellite phone on the Noatak River to have an emergency food drop call in. I paid with that for my credit card, and the plane flew over and dropped some packages from the air. But on that stretch from Ambler to Anactuvic Pass, I never saw another person for 50 straight days, and I was talking to the dogs a lot. I was talking to myself a lot. But toward the end, on Easter Creek, when I was pretty much totally out of food, I was gradually starving. I was giving the dogs more food than I had. And I think over a 10-day period, I ate maybe about a cup of lentil beans a day for myself and the dogs, which we had run out of dog food by then, of course. And they were probably eating twice what I was eating because I didn't want the dogs to become a problem for me. I didn't want them to suffer. That would just be one more problem I would have had to have dealt with. So I tried to keep them strong. And I had the satellite phone, so I could always could have called if the dogs were in jeopardy. With 4 days to go to Anactuvic Pass, I'm walking 10-hour days, I'm eating barely nothing, and I can see my body wasting away day after day. I called my mom on my satellite phone, and I said, "Hey Mom, I got enough, I have 4 days to go, and I only have enough food for 2 days. And I told her I'd call her when I got to Anactuvic Pass, and I probably wouldn't call again because the batteries in my sat phone were getting pretty low, so I needed to call for an emergency, so I had to save my battery power. But I didn't have to call. I stumbled into Anactuvic Pass as thin as a rail, but as jubilant as ever, knowing that what I had just gone through. But that was a pretty difficult.
boy, good boy. Atta boy. Ah, good boy. Those are good, you guys. Good boy. Good boys. Those are good. Good blueberries. Buddy. Thanks, buddy. Going through the forest here on Smoke Creek. Kind of just have to keep an eye on the peaks in front of you when you're cutting these bends in the river, so you can come out on the other side of the bend. This is pretty much what it looks like. Kind of cool. Mosquitoes are kind of bad. That's the only problem. This place is great when it rains because you can just get under one of these spruce trees. But kind of just got to follow the animal trails. Like that's kind of one there. Anyway, you got the idea.
When I was a child and I lived in the city, I dreamed of Alaska, so far away. And I dreamed I was flying over mountains and glaciers. Somehow I knew that I'd live there one day. Well, it took me some growing and a fair bit of schooling, a little bit of trouble to get on the move. And I felt like a loser, but I turned out the winner when it came to Alaska, the land that I love. Here's to Alaska, here's to the people, here's to the wild, and here's to the free. Here's to my life in a chosen country. Here's to Alaska and me. was born in a cabin on Little Old Chapman, raised in hard times, but I had a good life. From the first time I flew with my father a-singing, I knew that I'd wind up a bush pilot's wife. We sleep near the sound of a slow-running river and wake up most mornings to a drizzle and rain. And we live every day like the first or the last one, with nothing to lose and heaven to gain. Here's to Alaska, here's to the people, here's to the wild and here's to the free. Here's to my life in a chosen country, here's to Alaska and me. Oh, for a fire on a cold winter's night, once more to gaze at the great northern lights, for all of the beauty my children will see. Here's to Alaska and me. Here's to Alaska, here's to the people, here's to the wild and here's to the free. Here's to my life in a chosen country, here's to Alaska and me. Oh, here's to Alaska and me.
So Jimmy developed lymphoma. At first I thought it was just a bad cold, but one night he could barely breathe, and it was clear that he was very ill. I took him into the vet. They informed me that he had lymphoma, an incurable cancer of the lymph nodes. I wasn't going to do treatment on him at first, because it usually only buys dogs another 8 months to a year. So I took him home with some prednisone, and they told me he had about a month to live. And it was that next day, actually, I decided, I don't care how much it costs, if this medicine they have can help Jimmy and give him another year, well, I was going to do it. So I spent $4,000 on him, which is nothing compared to my dog's life. I took him in, they gave him that injection, and the next day he had bounced back and was close to being himself again. So basically Jimmy had another 8 months of life, and he was pretty healthy those 8 months, kind of the best years of his life. But the cancer came back eventually with a vengeance, like it always does. Just a resistant monster now, and pretty much nothing would stop the cancer. And Jimmy was hiking to the end. We were taking walks to the very last day, and that last afternoon he started not eating, and that night he started having these seizures, and bad seizures for about an hour, till he finally passed away at midnight. I think it was in late January that he died. And I wasn't going to go back to Alaska without Jimmy. I didn't really have the urge anymore. But then, as time went past, I decided to take Will back, and I decided to finish the traverse of the Brooks Range. And Jimmy was there. He was there with Will and I in spirit, and I was thinking of that dog to the very last day, until we crossed into Canada and onto Old Crow.
There's Jimmy. Don't want to go hunting. Hey Jimmy. Jimmy. Hey buddy. You too, knucklehead.
a ride in my old car, but I still don't know how we made it home. Was I too far gone? Too far gone? Too far gone for you? We had drugs and we had booze, but we still had something to lose. And by dawn I wanted.
There's the lake I'm heading to. I don't think it has a name. Over that pass is the Shinjek River. I'm going too small.
In our secret dreams by night, can we really live our lives that way? Am I too
Where do I go?
far gone? Too far gone? Too far gone for you? Was I too far gone? Too far gone? Too far gone for you?
I got to the Shinjek River. I couldn't wade across it, which is kind of what I figured before I got there. So, I tried to build a raft, but there's not a lot of dead logs laying around, and all the spruce trees are pretty far back. And so I decided to gather up all the dead willow bushes. Each willow bush has these dead branches at the base of the plant. So I gathered all those up, made 2 huge bundles, wrapped them together, made sort of a catamaran out of them, and I decided I was going to get on there with my pack and just kind of kick myself across. When I get halfway across, and I'm pretty much just half in the water, this thing's barely staying afloat, and I can't really kick that good. And then I realized the current's dragging me down stream, and gradually I'm going around this bend, so it's kind of dragging me back out into the current. So I didn't think I could deal with the cold for much longer, so I didn't want to be out there kicking half in the water for another half hour. So I decided I slid off the raft, and then I started doing the side stroke, towing this raft because it's got my pack on it, and I can't lose my pack or I'll probably die. And I'm just doing the side stroke as hard as I can go because I'm getting cold. My body's going to stop functioning pretty soon. So I just go as hard as I can, and eventually I get to where I can touch neck deep, and that helps me just pull the raft towards shore. And in the meantime, I'm going so slow across the river. He's like swimming back and forth, wondering what the heck side of the river I'm going to come out on. So, but eventually we both make it out, and then most of my stuff got wet. So the vital stuff, like the camera, the food, it stayed pretty dry. So I was pretty lucky.
On the other side of that mountain is Potato Creek, which I have to get to, the headwaters, which drains into Canada and into the realm of Old Crow, far, far away. Very, very humbling to be out here.
Just these incredible lightning storms and thunder that would just echo across the sky. At one point, a lightning bolt touched down not too far from my camp. It hit a spruce tree, but you feel so exposed out on the tundra with these lightning storms, and then the rain just comes down in buckets, and you know, my tent would buckle from the sometimes it would hail. My tent would buckle from the rain, the hail, and the wind, and I was thinking, man, if my tent tears apart, I'll be in big trouble. But yeah, the lightning storms like nothing I'd ever seen before.
A little anxious today. Really working hard on this run out of food. See that mountain out there? I have to make it beyond that by today. Probably the only thing that can stop me is to drive it. Forces me to.
It freezes your already cold mind. Already cold, cold.
I gotta get going here.
Death is at your doorstep, and it will steal your innocence, but it will not steal your substance. You are not alone in
On a
this.
tributary to the Colleen River.
And you are not alone in this. As brothers we will stand and we'll hold your hand. Hold your hand. You are the mother of your baby child, the one to whom you gave life. And you have your choices, and these are what make man great. His ladder to the stars. But you are not alone in this, and you are not alone in this. As brothers we will stand and we'll hold your hand. Hold your hand.
After swimming, wading through head-high brush for days, just wet brush, just day after day, I finally reached some higher ground. I start hiking up into the old Crow Range, which totally changes from all the brushy terrain that I had been going through. And I get up on top of these mountains, it's totally open over up on top, and they have these things called terriers, which are these 100-foot tall pillars of rock just all over the place. And I have like 10 days to go. I'm still a little desperate. The whole trip I've had this subtle desperation just from being alone. You know, if something goes wrong, there's nobody there to help me. I've always had this subtle fear the whole trip. But in the Torres, 10 days ago, these fears kind of abate, and I reached this huge point of elation in my life. You know, I'm worn out and tired. I'm thinking back to all I went through, all the struggling over the last 7 months, and I realize I have this huge high. I'm just elated, and I realize at this point when I'm starting to see these magical tories, these magical pillars of rock, I realize that I'm gonna make it. And from then on, nothing in my life seems that difficult. At that point, I felt like I could do anything. I still had Will with me. He's still healthy. Something about reaching the end of a journey is very satisfying. And yeah, I was really glad I did it. And if I could do it again, I would go back and do it.